I got wildfire.
And away we go. Tell your boss this is a webinar, because basically that's true. Welcome to the pickup meeting. I'm Kevin Thomas. Next to me on the screen is Brody Broshears, human proof that vibes are a leadership skill. How you doing, my man?
That was fun.
Yeah, it was short, not as much of a tongue twister as some of these have been, where I'm just fumbling it the entire time.
You did great. It's been a while since we've done this, so we're trying to get back into it.
I know. For our audio listeners today, Brody is sporting this white pullover that I am envious of. Man, you look good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We were both talking about how we need a haircut. You can't hardly tell on the screen, but I'm getting kind of shaggy.
And everybody else around us is going to say, well, let me go check it out. What's long hair these guys look like? For bald men, this is long.
It's a bad hair day for sure.
It is. I'm almost having to do something to it. Now I'm rubbing my head like I'm a genie. What's happening today? I don't know. So listen, it is, late in August, early September timeframe. We're recording in July. Let's just say we're a little early on this. We're doing some ahead work here. And I think that this is a good way to get things started with, we've just celebrated as our country 250 years.
We did.
I mean, I haven't been around for all of them. Can you tell me about all of them, Grandpa?
I cannot. Unfortunately, I cannot. I mean, I do love me some history, but I can't tell you I was there. That's for sure.
So I want to ask you something about the spirit of anniversaries. If you had to guess what people will say about the two of us 250 years from now, assuming that this podcast somehow survives and evolves and is in the repository of information that people can pull from, what do you think that the historical record will say about the pickup meeting?
I don't know. Is it like a dynamic duo situation, like John Adams and Thomas Jefferson? Is it Bird and Magic? I mean, Hall and Oates? I don't know.
Wow. The famous duos that you came up with here, and Hall and Oates made the cut before some others that were there. They don't even talk anymore. That's not good.
Did I mention Lewis and Clark? Like maybe Lewis and Clark?
Yeah. Well, and I'm just bothered. Like, why wasn't that Clark and Lewis?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Don't you feel like Brody and Kevin, that makes sense. The B comes before the K.
I mean, I don't really care what people think of me 250 years from now. I'm just going to be a footnote. That's 100% true.
Yeah. I'd like to think that occasionally somebody listens to this years down the road, but 250 is pretty aspirational. There are people that were really significant 250 years ago that we don't talk about now.
I know. Unless they make musicals out of you, right? Like Hamilton or something along those lines.
Yeah. Maybe people will make a musical of the pickup meeting.
I knew you were going to go there. It just makes me laugh.
Well, listen, we've been doing this for a while. We've been doing this for over a year. And yeah. I'm pretty pumped that we're at this point where we can have a conversation about what 250 years from now means, not just, can we get to episode 2? We've moved beyond that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, our guest who's coming up said, you all have been doing this a while, and we were like, we're getting close to 50 episodes.
I know. That's a lot. That's good. I think we're doing pretty well. People are still listening.
And we're still friends. Like, we haven't killed each other yet. That's also true.
I think people would be blown away and also confused that there are times that we will do the hour recording. We're going to do an hour plus today for the show. But how long were we on the phone last night?
Yeah, like 90 minutes almost.
Like 90 minutes on the phone just talking about life. And we still want to talk to each other.
It's pretty crazy.
It is pretty crazy.
It's good to have friends. That's the way I think about it.
No, depending on where you're at in the country, it's also school supply season.
Yeah.
Do you remember this school supply aspect of things? Like, did you go get an abacus and like have to pick that out, or like what did you do?
Remember, we talked about this just briefly, but man, I loved me a good Trapper Keeper.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 80s style iPhone for sure, right? Like just the perfect planner. Put your pens and pencils in. I mentioned like the NFL pencils, but I'm really more of an electronic pencil guy now.
Braden had to take the ACT recently, and the night before he was reading through the stuff, and it said you need a number 2 pencil to take the test. And they looked around the house. I looked around my place, just looking through all the things. I don't have a number 2. I had to go buy a number 2 pencil because you didn't have it. And so thank goodness it was school supply season because you could just easily go get that. But I just think that I'm not a big supply person anymore in life. I don't remember doing that like for college level things.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, when I started school, there were no computers, so pencils and pens were still kind of important.
That's true.
That's pretty crazy. The one thing I was thinking about, I don't know if they still have these, but I had pens that had erasers, like pens with erasers. Do they still make those? Like Papermate, I think.
But it didn't really work, right? It kind of just
No,
made
it
it
was
blurry.
terrible. It was terrible.
Yeah.
But I remember that gimmick well.
Are there things that now you will buy for your office that are standard supplies that you think are unique to Brody?
I do have a specific pencil that I like that some people at the University of Southern Indiana introduced me to. From a pen perspective, I just find one I really like and use it. Like, that's it. I don't know that I have a specific pen. Do you have a specific pen or pencil that you use?
I don't, and I was a little slow because I'm producing today, but to your university one,
Got it.
I did forget. And but no, I don't. I love when people give me pens, so then I don't have to worry about finding more pens. And so I will use pens. I have pens with saying on them right now, like this one here says "Never give up."
Love that.
It's a reminder. My old supervisor, Dr. Patty Poulter, bought me a whole handful of motivational pins. Maybe she thought I needed some pushing. I don't know what was going on there, but they were inspirational. I do want to just transition just a smidge.
Yeah, let's go.
The pickup meeting, as we really came up with this, was that you and I were going to get on to an episode and just wing it. And we don't do that.
No, we don't. We do it on the phone, but for the podcast, it doesn't really work that way anymore.
No, if you go back to the first episode, the Tara Warden episode, I think we were just making stuff up. I don't know that we had anything down, maybe a handful of notes, and we were just figuring it out. And now we prep a little bit more than we used to.
Yes.
Are you a prep or an off-the-cuff person?
I mean, I think about this a lot. Maybe I don't really so for example, when I present, I don't really practice presenting. Like, I'll put a slide deck together, but I don't get in front of a mirror and go practice what it's going to look like or how long it's going to take. And when I write, I generally am a one-take person. Like, I'll get going and I'll just write it all out and then I'll go back. But it's very difficult for me to write in sections. So I feel like I'm more of an off-the-cuff person than a prep person.
I think this is why this works, because I am also an off-the-cuff person. And I have practice presentations, but I will say they did not go the way I practiced them.
Nothing made me more nervous. Like, when I had to present in front of boards, oftentimes the president or the provost would ask me to come in and prep. And that was way worse than actually presenting to the board, like, all the time. The practice was worse than doing it.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I feel like an audience helps dictate what you do in a presentation, because there's a vibe that happens. There's an energy that happens. There's a connection that happens. Somebody might come in a shirt color that I've never seen before, and that person is going to be somebody I talk to and focus on. Why? Because it seems fun to me.
Yeah, it's
It's
kind of like
probably not fun to them, but it seems fun to me.
It's like this white quarter zip.
Yeah,
that I
from
got a
where?
compliment on today. Right?
What bird is that?
It's the red bird.
Oh, okay. I don't know your logo. I mean, I guess I might.
You should.
I guess
Are you the Bears? I can't remember.
We are the Bears of the University of Central Arkansas.
Ding. Yes.
Yeah, gotcha. So yeah, I'm not a prep person because I think there's an energy and a flow to things. But I thought you were the same, but I didn't know that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's good to be prepared, but being prepared means having a good slide deck or, having a good conversation before we go on the air, making sure we make our guests feel comfortable.
Yeah. And speaking of our guests,
Yeah.
I think this is a really good time for us to welcome today on the pickup meeting Dr. Aaron Brown. He's the Executive Vice President of the Council for Opportunity in Education.
Yeah, and what I've loved learning about Aaron is that he's a first-generation TRIO alum himself, which means, right, the work he does now isn't really just theoretical to him. It's also pretty personal. He earned his PhD in public affairs from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, 20 years in higher ed across roles that lead like a tour of kind of that entire student success ecosystem: assistant vice provost for advising, associate dean for student development and achievement, director of TRIO student support services, first year experience instructor, and elected faculty senate member. That's crazy.
Along the way, Aaron has secured millions of dollars in federal and local grant funding across 3 institutions to help low-income students, first-generation students, students with disabilities access and finish college. He's a past president and founding board member of the Washington State TRIO Association. He built Central Washington University's first transfer center from scratch, and he was a key visionary behind the Major Pathways program at UNLV.
Man, that's crazy. And for our advising folks, right, before joining COE, Aaron was the assistant vice provost for academic advising at the University of Texas at Arlington, where he led the University Advising Center and helped design an academic advising strategic plan built around holistic, coordinated care for students. So when we say this is a guy who's seen higher education from the classroom, the advising office, the dean suite, and now the national policy stage, we mean it literally.
And we talk about connection on the show. And Aaron, I was trying to think about this. Our connection's NACADA. It has to be that somewhere in some conference, in some place across the spectrum of our careers, that's where we connected. And then I think we've stayed connected via LinkedIn and occasionally social media here and there. But am I right hearing that's our connection?
Yes, that is right. And thanks for having me, Brody and Kevin. Glad to be here. Yes, absolutely. It's been interesting. I've been very active over the years with COE, but then there was definitely times when I was very involved with NACADA, and not from a leadership standpoint necessarily, but from more of a participant. I would go to the conferences, I'd present, and such. So we definitely have crossed paths then, and of course LinkedIn. If you know this, Kevin, and Brody too. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you want to know what I'm doing and what I'm thinking, just go to LinkedIn and you'll find out.
Brody, it's weird where you have these moments where you remember meeting somebody, and in my mind, this may not be true at all, but in my mind, we were at a conference, and it was either at a reception or a breakfast, and Charlie Nutt came up and said, "Hey, Kevin, I'd like you to meet somebody." And I think that's how I feel like we met, but I could be just making stuff up and giving Charlie credit here, but that's the way in my mind, that's the way it works.
I seem to recall that too. It might have been an administrator's institute or something.
Oh
yeah. Because I went to an administrator's institute years ago. I'm not going to say anything about my age. I just celebrated a birthday a couple of days ago, and all of your reflections to start off this introduction was making me feel really old, and especially the 250 years. And I would be interested in a musical of the pickup meeting. This you got me thinking about that. And the Trapper Keeper. I'm sorry, Brody. I actually didn't have enough money to afford a Trapper Keeper when I was that age, so it was always an aspirational goal for me.
Yeah.
That and the Michael Jackson leather pants and the jacket. That was always aspirational for me too.
Well,
I feel like you
looked
won on that front. Like by that being aspirational, there are no pictures of you in pants that are that way.
That's right. That's right. Thank God.
Yeah.
Well, you came to us with a real point of view, and we love that. And you mentioned wanting to
Mhm.
move past the conversation of is college worth it?
Yeah.
Right. Like let's go beyond that debate. So, and let's use this anniversary as the lens in which we start. As the country has turned 250, why is this a moment to revisit the value of higher education? And why do you think the worth it when we talk about higher education framing has gotten a little stale?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think there's, I'll just say it this way. I think there's never been a better time to have this conversation about higher education because it's under a tremendous amount of pressure and a huge microscope, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm certain, I don't think I need to share that with the two of you. You know that you're living it. And I know you've probably seen the latest reports on the lack of public confidence in higher ed as an example, right?
Yeah.
It's been going down precipitously. Just this past June, for instance, a Gallup survey found that only 38% of Americans say they have a great deal, or I believe it said, or quite a lot of confidence in higher education. Now, 38% doesn't sound great, but then if you compare it to what it was like, say 10 years ago when they asked that question, it was 57%.
Wow.
So that's a pretty dramatic shift in just 10 years. Now, that's just one question, one scale, but it's about public confidence in higher ed. That's just one thing I could give as an example. And really, it's being scrutinized from every single direction. Let's unpack that a little bit, right? So some are questioning the cost, right? The ROI, you hear that a lot. Others are questioning its relevance even. And I think others are looking at whether or not, and I wish more people would be looking at this, whether or not it's fulfilling a civic mission or what we hear a lot, is it preparing students for the workplace, right? Workforce development, that kind of stuff. And I think in some circles, college and universities are being asked to justify their very existence as if higher ed is some kind of burden on society. And so I always take a little issue when it starts going to that extreme. And as you hear me talk, you'll understand why. You can see this kind of playing out across the country. And I would give you a couple examples here of states. Take, for instance, Tennessee, Kentucky, or even Florida, right? They're advancing, and you may even have it in Illinois, I don't know. And maybe Arkansas would probably be the place where you're seeing credentials of value being talked about a lot, right? That kind of language, those initiatives that really are asking colleges to demonstrate what they're asking them to demonstrate the economic return on degrees and certificates and credentials, right? And I think we would all agree that students and families deserve the type of transparency that's being called for. And I think it's entirely appropriate to ask whether higher education is preparing graduates for successful careers. But here's where I would push back a little bit or add to the conversation that I think it's a big and. At the same time, I think much of the public conversation has become far too obsessed with meeting market demands. Because the reason why I say that is because that's only one part of a much larger story in history of higher education and its values. Because you see, when you center the conversation on the private good aspect only of higher ed, guess what ends up happening? We begin to get outcomes that place the bulk of the cost of education on the backs of who?
Yeah.
The students.
Absolutely.
Right? So because we see it, and policymakers start seeing it as a private good, rather, and at the same time, I would say ignoring the great benefits of higher education that they have to the local communities and to our nation as a whole. So that's why, as we were thinking about this episode, I thought it would be, I think that America turning 250 years is a great moment, an important moment, and I think it's an inflection point. It offers us a chance, an anniversary that invites reflection. And when I do that, here's what I'm seeing. And I'm curious to get your take on this. For centuries, what I would argue is U.S. colleges and universities have prepared leaders They've advanced scientific discovery. They've fueled economic growth while at the same time expanding opportunity for those who were not born into wealth, and in also strengthening local communities. So, and I think higher ed has reflected our highest aspirations as a country. And I don't mean to be I don't want to use hyperbole here, but I really believe that. I think higher education has reflected our highest aspirations. It's been a part of some of our deepest disagreements, no doubt, right? As Americans,
Yeah.
if we look back in the 1960s and 70s, there was a lot going on at places like Berkeley, right? I think higher ed is also a beacon to the world that showcases our American enduring belief that education can improve both individual lives and society itself. So that's a lot to say in terms of that first question, but I think it's important to kind of set the context for what I was thinking about as we were kind of contemplating that America turns 250.
Yeah, Aaron, I just wanted to add on to that. To me, I think it's really about understanding the evolution of higher education.
Yeah,
that's kind of our responsibility. But when I hear about the public perception of higher education, I do think we bear some of that responsibility. But the other piece that I'm always kind of optimistic about is higher education's even older than the country itself, right? I mean,
exactly.
In many ways, colleges and universities have existed before the founding of the United States of America. And so to me, I think there's plenty of room for optimism. And when public confidence is that low, there's no other way but up. And
yeah, that's a good way.
and look, do colleges and universities bear some of that responsibility? Certainly. But my own take is we're in a pretty good place right now. And I think what you said, Aaron, kind of highlights some of the spaces where colleges and universities have always led, right?
Yeah,
and that's really important. I know when in your prep with Kevin, we talked a little bit about, you mentioned a couple of episodes of College Matters from the Chronicle. And I had listened to the Ken Burns episode about the greatest danger facing higher education.
Yeah.
I had listened to that about a month ago, and I re-listened to it this morning, and I'd be interested, right? I don't want to give anything away for our listeners that may want to listen to that episode, but what did that conversation with Ken Burns kind of unlock for you?
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that and you brought this up, because I highly recommend anybody who's listening to this podcast listen to the one that College Matters does. It's a Chronicle podcast about the greatest threats to higher education. So I'm going to back up a little bit before I answer that question, Brody and Kevin, just to kind of give you a little bit of insight into my psyche and kind of my daily routine. I'll just say it and I'll admit it. I'm a bit of a podcast junkie.
Me too. Let's go.
That's right. So I spend time during the morning before work while I'm getting ready, while I'm commuting, and just listening to conversations from different sector leaders, right? Yeah. So the pickup meeting, certainly is a part of my greatest hits list.
Appreciate that.
I also have others. If you don't mind, I'll share a few of those. If people might be interested. Yeah. So I really enjoy the Ezra Klein show, New York Times. Yeah. Very, very illuminating, challenging, really good stuff. Very political, government-based type of stuff. The Daily Punch Bowl, for somebody who lives and works in DC, that's where I get a lot of my quick information about what's going on the Hill. And I really love that. I can do it in 15 minutes in the morning, and they pretty much do one every morning. So I love it, the Punch Bowl. And another couple of ones that I like is the Hidden Brain.
I love the Hidden Brain.
Yeah.
So great.
Very good. Very good. And then the last one is for those of you who are out there who are athletes that have become leaders, The Corporate Competitor by Don Yeager. Oh. I highly recommend that one as well, especially if you're somebody who's working in advising and maybe you're like an assistant director or you're a director or you're an AVP of advising. Yeah. There is a lot of really good leadership types of I think nuggets of gold that come out of that. And it's kind of fun to hear these CEOs and different people talk about how sports really shaped them as leaders. And so I wanted to share that because I am a little bit of a junkie when it comes to podcasts. So to answer your question, Brody, as you mentioned, I've been listening to College Matters recently, and the two episodes that you just mentioned, I thought were pretty important to kind of help add to this conversation for this podcast. The other one is the higher ed is as American as apple pie.
Oh,
and
that's super fun.
So I thought that was very illuminating in terms of what that's all about, right? So, but the first one you were talking about with Ken Burns, of course, Ken Burns is one of America's most acclaimed historical documentary filmmakers. Excellent work on the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, and in different parts of what made our country great. In that episode, they were discussing the challenges facing higher education. And at one point, Ken Burns described colleges and universities, I thought this was so great, as the crown jewel of the American experiment. And I'm going to say that again, the crown jewel of the American experiment. I thought that was such a great description of higher education. But he also says this. He says the greatest danger facing higher ed is the notion that everything is transactional.
Yeah.
And the value is solely economic. And then he goes on to say that we have produced the envy of the modern world in American higher education, but yet we focus almost exclusively on its flaws. And so now I'm starting to feel like this is an apologetic podcast about higher ed. I didn't intend that, but I think there's some really good things that we could bring out about higher ed that we should be proud of, at the same time recognizing the flaws that are there, that are all well too documented, that we do definitely need to do something about. But I think both those episodes point to the same conclusion. The best versions of colleges and universities aren't degree factories, and they're not solely serving at the whim of the marketplace. They're institutions that have been essential to America and our development and our story as a country since before our nation's founding, to your point. So that's what really stood out to me in those episodes. And I don't want to say any more because I don't want to give away the other nuggets of gold that are in those episodes.
It's really great.
We're going to talk about this from a standpoint of our show, but somewhere in the middle of this, our audio audience isn't having any issue today, but I just disappeared on the screen and I cannot bring myself back. So I'm going to wing it, but it's throwing everything off in my mind as far as how we're going. So
Kevin, can I interrupt you? Because I just thought I must have said something that really ticked him off. And he's just like, I'm out.
All of a sudden, it was just I'm gone and I'm trying to get myself back on screen. And so I don't know why I made myself look so pretty today because no one's going to see me. But here we are. So just so if anybody's tuning in, I do exist. But I'm nodding my head and agreeing quite a bit, Aaron.
Okay.
But I want to move us towards you want to explore how higher education creates multiple forms of value. And so for all the work that we're doing with multiple stakeholders, multiple time horizons, break that down for us when you're saying multiple forms of value.
Yeah. That's something that, when you're talking about value, you're talking about stakeholders, you're talking about you kind of unpacking what is it that higher ed brings to the table. And I think it basically, I go back to some of the readings that I was required to do in my PhD program. And one of them was on the three missions of higher education. Several of you out there listening are probably familiar with David Laborie, his seminal article in 1997 about the public goods, private goods, the American struggle over educational goals.
Right.
Excellent. Talks about the three missions of higher education. And then I also would suggest, and especially in honor of this conversation about America's anniversary, I would steer people in the direction of Martin Lipset, who did a book called The American Exceptionalism. And he really argues that the United States, developed around what he refers to as 5 enduring ideals. And I think that's helpful to understand the history of higher education. So what are they? One of liberty, egalitarianism, individualism, populism, and laissez-faire are the 5 enduring ideals that he talks about. And those values, so to go back to your point about values, they've shaped our national identity, but they've also created trade-offs. And so the American exceptionalism talks about a double-edged sword. So while we're exceptionalism in Lips's terminology does not mean exemplar in all ways. It means that, yes, we're different and we stand out, but not always in a good way, right? There are some things in our history, I think, that we would all agree that we should have done way better at, and we continue to struggle with even today. And so it's a double-edged sword because a lot of these values require trade-offs. And higher education has always reflected that kind of those competing ideals. And so I think when you take a step back and you kind of start to understand some of this, it's not as simple as, well, if you put your finger on this issue in higher ed, it's going to solve everything and everything's going to be fine, right? That's not that simple. You have to understand that higher education comes from literally out of the ideals of the American psyche. When David Lavery talked about public good, private goods in those 3 missions, the 3 missions that he's arguing about is democratic equality, right? Something that I really, really appreciate in my work as EVP for the council. Social efficiency is the other mission that he talks about, that workforce training, workforce development type stuff. And then the social mobility aspect. That's that real economic driver for individuals. When you look at those 3 missions, you very clearly see a public good and private good, and then one that's kind of maybe a mixture of the two, the social efficiency. So I thought it was really interesting because Jack Stripling, to go back to referencing one of the Chronicle episodes on, this was the higher ed is American as apple pie one. He pointed out, and I think this is where he makes Lavery's point when he suggests this, and I'm paraphrasing, and don't fact check me because I may not get this perfectly right, but this is what happens when you get older. But I think if I recall correctly, when you step back, he was trying to make this point. When we step back, we see that higher education at its best and at its worst mirror the American psyche, the egalitarian and the meritocracy notions, right, of our country, the ability to challenge the process and speak freely, faculty tenure, shared governance, all those kind of things, right? And higher education also reflects the diversity of our country when you think about the students. Our colleges and universities are far more diverse than they ever were, 200 years ago. And that is something to be proud of. And I think it represents the ability also, higher ed, to deliver the American dream. Now, here's the other side of the sword. Yet at the same time, and this is one of the points that they make, higher ed faculty still do not reflect the diversity of our country.
Yeah.
Right? And at the same time, higher ed has had an unequal record of producing opportunities for everyone. That's one of the reasons why I continue to do the work that I do, is to make sure more low-income first-generation students have that opportunity. And so it's that double-edged sword that Lipset talks about that they didn't name it, but I was really clearly seeing that in their talk. So to me, that's kind of why I think we've been having this conversation for generations, and we're going to continue to have this conversation about the value of higher education for generations. So I'm sorry to tell you, I don't think this conversation is going anywhere. And it's not because higher ed has lost its way. I think it's just because Americans have never expected it to serve just one purpose.
That's accurate.
Right? And
I mean, the one thing that I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go. Yeah.
The one thing that you mentioned that really struck me is the examination of our history, right? The good and the bad.
Yeah.
And the responsibility that higher ed has kind of put on its shoulders to do some of that really critical work, right? Where else, in what other institutions is that happening? And so to me, like, I think about our students and what they get, our communities and what they get from that critical examination of our flaws, as well as our great accomplishments, right? Those those flaws make us who we are.
Yeah.
I think one of the things, like, I don't want to get too political here, but one of the things that like, if we're going to erase the actual history of our country, I think we do ourselves a disservice,
Yeah.
right? It just doesn't work. And so, I mean, I would think you've mentioned multiple stakeholders here, right?
Yeah.
And so if we were to take those one at a time, because I
Yeah.
think this is where it gets real for our listeners, like, walk us through what that value, you talked about that value, what it looks like for a student, for an institution, for a community or an employer, or for society at large.
Mhm.
Where do we think those interests line up, and where do they actually pull against each other?
Yeah. Okay. So I think let's just go right into it. Let's just name them, right? So for
Yeah.
students, what is it? For students, the value proposition is about opportunity. It's about earning a degree. It's about
Yeah.
finding meaningful work, increasing lifetime earnings. Dare I say, discovering purpose?
Yes.
I think that's safe to say here.
Making meaning, right?
Okay, let's talk about institutions. What is, it's about attracting students. It's about advancing research, scholarship, and of course fulfilling the mission of the institution. And then you have another stakeholder, which would be employers. It's about developing talent and remaining competitive. The competitive piece is essential for employers, right?
Yeah.
And then the other two groups, we have communities and we have society as a whole. And communities, I would argue, it's a stronger civic engagement. It's improved public health, lower crime, greater volunteerism, and you can go on, right? Economic vitality. All of that is really essential to a community that wants to thrive. And we know that there are a lot of communities in America that their whole ecosystem it's called a college town for a reason, right?
Right.
It's that town and gown. I mean, if you take away that university and you say, oh no, it's no longer needed, you could devastate an entire city by doing that. And so for society as a whole, I would say scientific discovery. I know I've said that before, but I really, the proof is out there. A lot of scientific discovery has come out and advancements have come out of higher education, national security, right? May I say democratic participation as well. It might be benefited by people who are college educated. And then I just think overall a general statement of just solving problems we haven't encountered yet. We've got AI. AI is not looming. AI is here.
Right.
And if we think that we're going to be training people on exactly how to deliver AI and the tools that are necessary for the AI world in 2 years, if we train them perfectly to do it now, that'll be completely different in 2 years. What we have to train people to do is think critically, right? All of the other things that we talk about for those of us who are in the space of higher ed, rather than just those very tactile, very task-oriented kind of skills, we want, I think broader skills, more critical thinking type of skills to meet the demands and the changing demands of society. So I think that's what I would say. I'm curious about how you all think about that when it comes to where those interests line up. Yeah, because I'm about ready to talk about where they pull back, but I want to pause there before I do that.
I mean, I think everything that you've said makes perfect sense. And I think it's a message that higher ed has been willing to share. I mean, I think, so to your point, I think it is a message that we've been willing to share. The question is what message gets out into the universe and what voices are listened to. And so if you're in a place of criticism, I think it's easy to kind of feel defensive about what you think is really important. And I just think there needs to be a little bit more confidence. Everything about your response rings true to me, Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I think it's easy to tell that story in real positive ways. It's just a matter of getting out there more, right? And doing this more and really having people kind of share how they've benefited from these experiences. I mean, I've committed my whole life to higher education and students, college students. And I mean, it's easy for me to share the stories of success, right? I have 2 kids that have college degrees, and they've benefited tremendously from their undergraduate experience.
Yeah.
And not just because they have good jobs, and not just because they make decent money, but because of what it's taught them, because of who they've become as humans and civically engaged persons in their respective communities. Like it's an easy story to tell. We just have to tell it maybe louder and better.
Yeah, I think that's where we've kind of fallen. We've allowed the narrative to become almost exclusively negative, and almost to where we have to feel embarrassed about, the fact that we work in this industry, and there's so much negativity around it. But and again, I'm not trying to be an apologetic, here, and be everything is great, higher ed is perfect, we don't need any. No, absolutely not. I hope that's not what I'm saying. But I do say that I think when we solely focus on one outcome of higher education, one mission, we have lost our way. We are really missing out on the other benefits that we've just talked about. Now, you asked me about where do these interests line up, and I just gave you a whole litany of ideas, but I didn't ever answer the question about where do they actually pull against each other. And I think that's an important question that you asked, and I think it's worth addressing, because again, it goes back to this idea that it's not, flowers and butterflies all the time. There's challenge, there's conflict, there's stakeholders that have competing interests and needs. So take, for instance, I think when these values and missions and these interests pull against each other, an example would be a student may choose a major, right? We're talking about advising here.
Yeah.
Based on a personal passion. But while the local employers may not need the interest area that you have, they may need something else in the marketplace.
Right.
And this is the one that I encountered quite a bit more than the first one I gave. A parent may have different aspirations for their children, and I would use the word force them
Yes.
to select a major they deem more appropriate for short-term economic gains, right? We've seen that.
We've seen it.
Yep. We've seen it, we experienced it. So there's where there's that pull, right? I'm passionate about an area. I want to go into the fine arts, but everything else, everybody's telling me that's a bad idea. I'm not going to make any money being a theater major, whatever. And my parents are telling me, no, you have to be an engineer. And I've got a student sitting in my office in tears. Right. And this is a true story, right? I've got a student in my office in tears because they don't know what to do. They don't know how to cope with this at 18 years old.
Right.
And so the other example I would give that I thought of as you asked that is an institution may invest in research whose payoff won't be realized for decades. Now, that's fine unless you're a policymaker that may need immediate workforce outcomes because I've got an election coming up. Not to get too political here, but that stuff happens.
It absolutely does happen. Kevin, I think one of the ways I want us to move forward, we do really need to get to your story a little bit, Aaron.
Oh, sure.
And I think, right, like, so you're a national voice now, but you were a first generation TRIO student and alum, right? And now you lead this national organization that's built to serve students just like the one you used to be. And so thinking about that, how has your own educational journey shaped the way you think about higher ed's value, especially compared to someone who came up maybe through a more traditional path? Yeah.
I suspect that a lot of our listeners are going to relate to some of the story that I share with you, and a lot of us are first gen.
I'm first gen.
Yeah. So let me answer it this way to start off. We would not be having this conversation today if I had not, invested in myself in higher education. I mean, that's pretty the most obvious thing I could say. And let me unpack that a little bit more. I grew up in a very small rural community in southern Washington State. I'm in Washington, D.C. now, total other side of the country. And I come from a very blue collar farming community, really. And if I were to go along with what my dad has done, what my grandfathers had done, I would pretty much be a carpenter, or working, very minimum wage type of jobs, maybe even 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet, which is fine if that's what I wanted to do. Uh, and it's very honorable being a carpenter. But here's the problem for me. My least favorite subject throughout middle school, elementary, high school, you name it, was guess what it was?
Shop.
Yes, and math.
And math. Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic. Right.
And of all the math subjects that I was really especially bad at was geometry.
Yeah. That's going to be really detrimental to being a good carpenter.
That's right. So I was smart enough, even at the age of 18, 19, when I was trying to figure out my life, I was smart enough to realize that I just didn't have those natural qualities. I had no interest in it. And despite my dad's best efforts in training me, I just was not a great pupil. So I came to the realization after taking a gap year. I worked at the mall at Sears, actually. And it was one Black Friday that really convinced me that I did not want to be a manager working at a mall for the rest of my career.
Yeah.
So, because I hadn't even gotten up to that stage. I'm just like, I don't even want to do that if I got promoted to that high. But look, I decided that, you know what, I'm going to give higher ed a chance. I'm going to go to a community college because I knew I couldn't get into a university. My high school grades were not stellar, and I didn't have confidence that I could get into a university. I also didn't have the money, quite frankly. I scraped together money for half a year when I finally figured out I was going to go, and used that to pay for, I went to Spokane Falls Community College. And that actually was when everything changed for me. I'll admit, I was lost when I showed up on campus. I didn't know the first thing what I was doing. But it was Spokane Falls Community College that really opened my eyes to different career paths. And I will admit, I took advantage of opportunities that they presented to me, right? Going to different, events and things where they talked about careers, talking to the Eastern Washington University advisor who came down at a regular times during the month and talked to us about transferring. I took advantage of those things, and it ended up paying off because I learned a lot from the resources that they offered. I ended up enrolling successfully, though, at Eastern Washington University, and that's when I ran into TRIO. And so I was, a low-income first-generation student. I learned how to navigate Spokane Falls eventually, and now I had to do it all over again at Eastern. And I was very fortunate to have struggled in a chemistry class, because that's where I got introduced through the tutoring program at TRIO, that they even existed and that they offered these great, services. And beyond the academic support that TRIO offered me, I would say that I would emphasize the career development and the career readiness. They helped me with internships. I actually got certified as a tutor. They hired me eventually as a tutor, trained me. I got to do public speaking. I mean, there was so much that I got to be involved in, and I was around people that cared, that knew me by name, knew my names of my parents, my wife, my dog. I mean, they just knew me, and they exposed me to things that I never would have known about and never would have had that opportunity. So I'm a big proponent of internships. Obviously, I'm a big fan of TRIO. Without those kind of experiences, I definitely wouldn't have had the type of career that I eventually had. Now, here's the other thing, and you mentioned this earlier, Brody. This didn't just change my life, because that's no doubt. It also, my wife comes from severe poverty. She got a degree at Eastern Washington University in dental hygiene. She's a practicing hygienist.
Yeah.
Our daughter is about ready to graduate with a 4-year degree at a university in organizational psychology. And she's well on her way being able to have a very productive career that gives back to the community. And so it's not just me that benefited from these programs like TRIO and this experience in higher ed, but I have relatives that were impacted by this as well. So going back to your statement earlier, this is kind of a ripple effect is what I would call it. And I think too often we underestimate that as well.
I love it.
Aaron, a lot of our listeners, yes, for folks that are watching, here I come. A lot of our listeners are advisors or lead advisors, work in the advising student success profession. In your framework, what role do academic advisors specifically play in helping students understand and articulate that broader purpose in their own education beyond just staying on track for graduation?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I was hoping we would get to a question very specifically about advisors, because anybody who's been around me knows I think the world of academic advisors. I probably think that they are next to faculty, one of the positions that is one of the most important positions on campus.
Yeah.
No offense to all the other ones, but I'm definitely very biased towards academic advising. Look at my background. But I think advisors have a role that almost nobody else on campus has. That's why I say that, right? I understand that not every advisor gets to know the whole student, but I would say that's because of a variety of reasons, not because they don't want to.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of constraints that we face. But most institutions, I would argue, have the potential to make more holistic advising an actual reality.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to be too controversial here, but I just believe that, having worked in higher ed for 20 years. And I believe that advisors are positioned uniquely in a way that most people on campus are not, right? And the effective ones usually end up knowing more about the students that they're serving and the university itself than almost anyone else. The majors, the requirements, yes, we got that in spades, but the resources, the people who to call when someone or something falls through the cracks, though that last part I think is really, really critical. It's connecting and helping people overcome those barriers. And so, yes, advisors help students pick courses and stay on track to graduate. No doubt about that. But honestly, I think the other important aspect, as I just mentioned, is the contribution that they make to helping students see today's decisions connected to tomorrow's opportunities, is the way I would put it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me be more specific, though, with that. I think a conversation about choosing a major can turn into a conversation about purpose.
Absolutely. God, that's so great.
I think we're at a point where we want to look at that road ahead. And there's a question that Brody and I put together and I like a lot. And it speaks to, if you had 30 seconds with every incoming college freshman in the country and wanted them to walk away from higher ed 250 years from now, the way that we're crediting last 250 years, what's the one thing that you would want them to believe about why they're there?
Oh, man. Initially, I'm feeling like that's the hardest question you've asked me. And then I immediately went to, no, that's actually the easiest one.
Good job, Kevin. Good job.
I know. So
right there.
The paradox.
Easiest question of the show.
That's right. Well, originally I was like, oh, that's a tough one. But then I tell them this. It's because I tell them that right now. Don't think of college as something you have to get through in 4 years. Think of it as an opportunity to discover who you are. And not just who you are, but what you're capable of and how you can contribute to something larger than yourself. I'm starting to sound like JFK here. If you do that, I think the degree won't be the most valuable thing you leave with, but it'll be something much more precious.
I love it.
That is great. On the advising front, I was just going to sneak in. I'm going to go back before we ask our last real worky question. I think the other role, and I've seen this in TRIO for sure, but certainly when I carried a caseload, I think the other thing that advisors provide, right, beyond some of the stuff that you've talked about, which I think was all very important, but I think you'll understand based on your experience and your work with academic advisors, is the belief.
Yeah.
Like advisors help students believe that they can accomplish these things, right? Their words of encouragement can matter. So when we start to talk about that relational piece, certainly connecting students to the resources and being on top of all the curricular things. The other thing is that caring voice of belief. You can do this. Setbacks are setbacks, but you're going to still be able to get this done. And I think that's a really important role that we sometimes underestimate in our work in the advising world.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it's, our advisors on campuses, they should be commended and supported even more than what they are typically. Too often I've found advisors get blamed for what's going wrong at the university. Yeah. And I have always felt that that's so wrong, because it's like I'm defending higher ed, but I defend advisors too, because it's not that simple, folks. And I've always encouraged them as well. You talk about confidence, that what they're doing matters, what they're doing is important. And when you get, every once in a while, we'll get a student send us an email. They'll show up to our office with some chocolate, maybe even a flower or something. Every once in a while, you'll get flowers, metaphorically, right, from students. And I say, put those in a folder. Yeah. Put them in an email folder that you have, because when there's going to be days that are going to be rough.
Yeah.
As you're talking about confidence and understanding value, we as leaders need to make sure that our advisors know their worth and their value, so then they can then give that confidence and that value and those kind of positive kind of energy back to their students. Because when an advisor feels like, I'm just burned out and I don't have anything left, it's going to be hard for them to have that confidence building conversation with students when they're not feeling confident. So I think you bring up a great point. And I just wanted to expand on that to say advisors need that too, right? They need leaders that are willing to say, I saw you. I saw what you did for that student. I really appreciate it, and really highlighting that.
Yeah, that's a great lesson for our administrators. A good reminder for sure.
Yeah.
Kevin, you want to lead us into the lightning round?
It's lightning round time, guys.
Lightning round.
So to kick things off with the lightning round, you're known for loving presidential biographies. Which president's biography taught you the most about leadership?
The biography about Harry Truman.
Oh. Okay. What's the one word you'd use to describe the purpose of higher education if you only got one word?
Oh, opportunity.
Oh, that's a good one. Way to go, Aaron. You kind of grabbed that pretty good.
Best leadership lesson you've pulled from a nonfiction book that had nothing to do with higher ed?
Oh, no, I can't answer that.
Because you turn everything into higher ed, right?
Yeah. So ask that again, because right now I'm stumped.
Best leadership lesson you've pulled from a nonfiction book that had nothing to do with higher ed?
Okay, I can answer that. Okay, so I've read, John Maxwell's leadership books.
Yeah.
I've read a lot of those. I would say the best lessons, and also Kusa's and Posner's leadership challenges are excellent. I would say leadership is all about influence, to quote John Maxwell. And I really believe that at the essence of leadership, it's about influencing others. For good or for not so good, but it's about influence. So don't forget that.
One thing that's still on your professional bucket list.
Oh man. I want to still continue to expand educational opportunity. And that's a mission of COE. And that's what's on my bucket list. I want to see a day where, every institution, every campus has a TRIO program, and they're serving all the low income and first generation students with disabilities. And those services are now starting to become part of the fabric of the institution. And so that everybody benefits from those best practices as well. That's like saying that. I know that's a huge aspirational goal, but I want to try to chip away at that as much as I can.
No, that's great.
And if you think that's a hard question, then this is going to be our wrap up here from our lightning round. If America's higher ed system had a walk-up song for its 250th birthday, what would it be?
Oh, you guys, I don't know. I don't know.
That is a hard question. I don't know. I know the answer to that, Kevin.
It is. At this moment, I'm like, happy birthday? What do you want, right? Like, I don't know.
Wow. Yeah, you stumped me on that one. I'm afraid to say anything because I'll have to say, okay, stop recording and edit this out. It will be here for like forever. I wish I had a clever response to that. I don't know. I really don't.
I think
and
this
my
is where
John,
this is where you come up with your future LinkedIn post that says, "I was stumped on a podcast, and now I found the perfect song." And we'll point listeners to that direction or something.
I love it.
I'm gonna give you something you can finish on. So I have been infatuated. I just sent Kevin the TED Talk by Simone Stolzoff, who wrote The Good Enough Job. And one of the things he talks about is diversifying our work identity. So we haven't really asked you any super fun questions, but what is it that you like to do outside of work, right? Like, give me one thing that you're really enjoying right now that has nothing to do with work at all.
Oh no. Oh wow, you're really going to expose me now.
I didn't think that was going to be that hard.
I know, right? Because I am like one of the most boring people you'll come across. I enjoy spending time with my family. Of course, I've got 2 kids. A wife will be celebrating 29 years of marriage here next month,
Love
and
that.
so yeah, I really honest. I know that's an answer people will give, but it's very authentic. I love spending time with them. And I like reading presidential biographies.
Yes, fair enough. You walked right into that. We'll let you off the hook there, Aaron. That's good.
I know. I will say this: when I was younger, back in my younger days, I would love playing basketball. I love sports, and I very much. I would play basketball forever if I could. So I really enjoyed that, and I used to play the guitar. And that would be something. So like this weekend, I picked up the guitar again. I hadn't played it in a little while, but that was kind of fun. So love music.
That's great.
Yeah, never too late to get back into it, Aaron.
That's right. So I'm actually gonna compose my own walk-up song for America Turns 250.
Yeah, and then after that, you get on the musical for the pickup meeting.
That's right.
There we go.
There it is. Aaron Brown, thank you so much for being a part of the show. You were fantastic. It was great to have you on.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be a part of this, and wish you both much success in your roles as well.
Thank you so much,
Aaron. Great to see you.
Well, that was fantastic and quite the adventure from the producing side today.
Yeah. It's really weird to look at a blank space that's supposed to be your face.
I am just making faces at the audience the entire time. I'm doing a lot of hand gestures. I got up and did a full dance routine during one of Aaron's answers earlier, and no one's ever going to know, but that's what was happening on today's episode. And again, the audio audience, no clue, but the visual audience said, "Where did Kevin go?" But I will say there were so many good takeaways in this episode. And as I was sitting here and listening to Dr. Aaron Brown and the conversation that you all were having, and I was kind of getting to be a part of sometimes, one of these things that came to mind, and this has been something in the working relationship here recently with campus, career outcomes is something that all of the legislation that's going through that's been heightened in the last, I would say, 8 to 12 years, it's needed. It's needed in higher education for there to be a greater accountability for career outcomes. And I don't think it can be the only thing that is the outcome that we're looking at, but I do think that career outcomes that many campuses struggle to be able to articulate is a focus that we've got to get better at within our profession.
And Kevin, I'll just pile on, because from an advising perspective, for the last at least 10 years, probably 15, I've been talking about really the practical and theoretical kind of justification for the integration of academic and career advising. And I sometimes think as advisors, we shortchange that as part of our role, is kind of how do we help students kind of make meaning of the major that they've selected or the academic program that they're going to pursue by connecting that to potential careers. And so I speak mostly from the perspective of working with exploratory students when I carried caseloads, but we owe it to our students to try to integrate those concepts a lot on the front end, but even as students progress through their program. So I totally agree, Kevin. No question about that.
You know, and then my last kind of thought here, and we'll get into our top 3, is I'm super appreciative of people like Dr. Aaron Brown, people in the profession that are standing up and making their voice known for purpose and for passion in that work. And I really do believe that higher education has an issue in having champions. We all expect that somebody else is going to do the work, or organizationally somebody's going to do the work, or that our president should do the work. And it's really important that there's champions in that voice that are out there that are really talking about higher education, the good, the bad, the ugly, but really saying the things that are there and that are happening, because that is the work that can be paramount to how we do the things that we need to do, which is tell our story that's of the things that are happening on our campus in a really powerful and effective way, because powerful and effective work is occurring.
Well, I can't say it better than that, Kevin. So I'm going to let you have the last word there.
Yeah. All right. Well, then let's top three this thing with, which one are we going to pick, Brody?
I don't know. It's up to you, my friend.
There's two. And I think let's do top three chain restaurants today. There's another one, but we'll save that one. Top three chain restaurants. And you said, well, we've probably hit these in other conversations of top threes. And I agree. I have a good idea of what a couple years are going to be, but what are your top three chain restaurants?
Well, I mean, I have such a soft spot for Pizza Hut. I don't know if it's my top three, but that Christmas Eve story that I've told on the podcast, I have such great memories from that. And then, we had our guest that, Wichita, and our guy from Wichita State. His name is, I'm having a moment here.
Bobby Gandu.
Yeah, Bobby. Kind of Wichita State, the birth of Pizza Hut there. That's super fun to me. I'm going to go old classic, like Dairy Queen is such a fun childhood memory, and I've never had a bad ice cream from Dairy Queen. And then I don't know. I think like I've had a big revisit to the Olive Garden here recently. There's never been a bad meal I've gotten at the Olive Garden. I always loved the story of the old woman that was out in the Dakotas that wrote a legitimate review about the Olive Garden and took so much grief. And then Anthony Bourdain came to her rescue. I always thought that was kind of cute, but I love me a good Olive Garden, man. They don't do anything bad in my perspective. So I'm going to go with those three.
I like it. I don't know that I would pick two of yours, but I like it. That's all right. I mean, I like Pizza Hut. That's not a bad thing. Olive Garden isn't a place I've been to in probably 15 or 20 years, probably 20 or 25 years.
You should give it a go.
I think I'm going to do a hard pass on that one. Not picking up the Olive Garden sponsorship today. But here are my three, and they are not close to yours. Texas Roadhouse.
Fantastic. It was
let's
going to
get a steak, but let's get that baked potato and then that butter on those biscuits. Come on, sign me up. I'm getting hungry right now.
I love Texas Roadhouse. I'm with you.
I also am a big fan of Outback Steakhouse. There's a theme coming here on steak.
Like just pick one of those.
Bloomin' onion. Give me the Alice Springs chicken. Give me the steak with a little seasoning on it. Come on, let's go.
Okay.
And then my third and final, and this is probably my number 3 spot, and it rises up to the occasion because you can just get anything at this place because the menu for it is a Bible. And that is the Cheesecake Factory, where they serve everything. And it is everything that they serve at the Cheesecake Factory. You want some chicken? Fine. You want some pasta? Fine. You want a steak? Fine. You want burger? Fine. Chicken strip. Yeah, it doesn't matter. They have it all. And then they have cheesecake, which is a win every time.
You know, I've talked about not being a massive cheesecake fan, so I don't think they would make my list, but that menu is next level. There's no question about that.
I have a firm belief that when menus are like that, it can't be good because if you're doing that much stuff, are you doing anything really well? Generally, the Cheesecake Factory does pretty well.
Yeah. Whew. Well, I'll tell you what, Kevin, I was kind of jarred by your non-videoed appearance here in this episode, but I think it's because you complimented me on what I was wearing today. I think that went bad for you as soon as you did that. That was a mistake.
I just disappeared and never came back. I don't like this at all. But we got through the episode.
Yep.
And hopefully this never happens again on a technical glitch. But this has really just been the pickup meeting with Brody and Dr. M. Brown.
And your voice from time to time.
And the voice of Kevin.
Well, gang, that does it for this episode of the Pickup Meeting. We hope all of your meetings, whether formal or pickup style, are as fun and as meaningful as this one. Until next time, gang, let's just do good and be nice.